Hi, this is Lori, and this is my walkthrough for day 8 of the Cogsworth City Kit from Inventor.io. Now, this lesson finally was updated and corrected so that it makes sense now. Beginning of September here, back in August when I started working on this kit, in August 2024, I should be clear. The lesson wasn't correct. The wiring diagram wasn't clear and the instructions weren't clear. So the lesson got fixed up and it works now. And you use this fork. So the fork here, when you connect up the fork so that the current flows through the fork and sends back a high to pin 7 here, then pin 7 will read high when the fork is connected. And then when you press a button, the appropriate LED will light up, and its brightness will be adjusted by the photoresistor. If you don't have the fork connected into the circuit, even if you press one of these buttons, the appropriate LED isn't going to light. We'll see in the code how that works. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was meant to be fun to hook something from the house into your circuit, but we're just kind of using the fork like a wire, and it's not working as a capacitive touch, which is kind of where I thought this lesson was going back in August. It's just connecting or not connecting the fork into the circuit or not. So I'll have an alternate piece of code that'll do this same function as this circuit, but we'll use a capacitive touch sensor that I happen to have from one of my kits. They're relatively cheap and they're fun to play with. It's the first time I've had a chance to use one, so I decided to do that when I was frustrated with the lesson back in August. So I'll do the lesson with the fork as it was intended, but then I'll show you the capacitive touch sensor that I'm using. They're relatively cheap. They're easy to get. Come in a lot of kits, and then we'll put the capacitive touch sensor in where the fork is, and we'll see how that works. All right, we're here with our setup over here, and with the IDE open, and I have the code directly from the lesson. I didn't really adapt it, except for I switched the buttons to use the internal pull-up resistors as I shown in previous days. I just find that a little easier to hook up on these really small breadboards. So let's just talk about the setup. Here's our LEDs. Here's our buttons with the internal. So when I press, they're going to give a low, and otherwise they're at a high. So I have to flip the highs and lows in the original code. And here's our photoresistor that we'll use to set the brightness of the LEDs. And then here's the fork setup. So here from pin 7, we come back, we connect into that resistor that's connected to ground, and then we have another wire here that connects into one of my alligator wires that's then connected to this fork. And then I have another one connected on the power side of this. So we're connected into the 5 volts, and it's connected over here. And then it comes around, and right now you can see this isn't touching the fork. So this circuit is open. This fork switch is open, and until we touch the fork with this end, we're gonna have an open reading from the fork, from the fork pin, I should say. All right, so that's kind of the setup, and now let's just take a quick look at the code. I'll drop my monitor down. And yeah, so we just set up all the pins for everything, including the fork and the photoresistor, and we'll have our button states and our fork state and the value from our photoresistor, our light level. We'll set up our pin modes, and here's the one difference that I put the input pull-ups in. Then everything else is the same, with the fork and the photo pin being inputs. And then we start the serial monitor so we can communicate. And then here in the void loop, we read everything, the buttons, the fork, the photoresistor. And then we're using kind of a compound statement here saying If the button is low and the fork is high, then we'll map the brightness here. We'll get our brightness value from our photo value, and we'll turn on that LED with the appropriate brightness. We'll print this statement to the serial monitor. Otherwise, we'll have that LED off. And we do the same thing for the other button, and we have that same compound statement. So short delay in here. So that's it to the code. I think it's pretty understandable from all the stuff we've done so far. So first I'll just sort of demonstrate that if we press either button, because we don't have this connected, they are not going to light. So now let's connect it. I'm just going to touch this to the fork, and we press, yeah, it lights, press, it lights. All right, if we're pressing one and I let go, it quits because we don't meet the criteria anymore, and we have to have it touched for it to work. All right, so yeah, that's how it works using our fork switch. All right, so next we'll talk just a brief amount about a capacitive touch sensor, and then we'll hook that into our circuit in place of our fork and see how that works. And this is what a touch sensor that I'm going to use looks like. Pretty small little sensor, and we touch here. We can use it as a switch. So if it's not touched coming out of this signal pin here, it'll read low, and if we touch it with our finger or any other part of our body, if we can get on there, then it's going to read high. And so it just has these 3 pins. We connect one of these to the pin on our hero board, and one to the power, and the other one to the ground. And yeah, we'll set it up just like a button. So we'll have a pin mode, and maybe we'll call this touch pin, and we'll set it up as an input. And if you read about this, you can find some pretty detailed explanations of capacitive touch. But here's the shortest one that I could find that made some sense to me. A touch sensor uses the capacitance of your body, and the word capacitance means comes from capacity, right? And capacity. Capacitance is the capacity of an object to hold a charge or electrons. And so when the touch sensor is not touched, it has a certain level of capacitance. And then when you touch it, you add your body to that. And so the capacitance changes, and the circuit detects that change in capacitance. So that's my basic understanding of capacitance switches or touch sensors. And I got that general idea from this How Stuff Works site. That was the one that made the most sense to me. It was about how those touch-sensitive lamps, when you touch the lamp, it goes on and off. So that's really kind of the idea of this little sensor. And that was kind of where I was thinking they were going with the fork, but there's a little more you got to put into that circuit to make it into a capacitive touch. All right, so let's go take a look at the code and try that little sensor out. Okay. So I've got the touch sensor, and I've got the code changed for the touch sensor. Really, you can almost use the fork code exactly as it's written, but I just changed wherever the word fork was. I put touch in here. So now it says touch pin and touch state, and I think when we print, I say the touch sensor is touched. So that is it. Everywhere there was fork, it now says touch. So no real changes to the code. So let's just take a look at the sensor itself. So let me bring up my monitor so I can make sure that we can see it. Yeah, so here's the one I have. There we go. You can, it's really hard to get it centered. There we go. And you can see it. And if I touch this spot right here, it's going to activate it. And to get it on my breadboard, I had a set of headers like these that are a little bit bent. So I'll just connect them in, and then I'll line it up with here's the signal pin and the power and ground. So that's exactly how this is supposed to be hooked up. So I'll just put it right in and line it up. And now it's in the circuit, and it has a little light to tell me it's got power on there. So yeah, so now it's all loaded in, so let's just give it a go. So again, we'll just demonstrate that if we press the buttons, it won't work, but if I touch the sensor and press a button, it's going to light, and we get the message in the serial monitor. And let's try this one. Yeah, so it works. Awesome. Yeah, that's fun. And you can get those little sensors, I think, for a couple, $2-3, depending on where you buy them. I've noticed on Amazon they tend to want you to buy like 8 of them. So sometimes you can get this in one of those nice kits, sensor kits or something, and then you don't pay too much for it, and you don't have to buy 8 of them. But yeah, they're not too pricey if you can get one by itself, and they're fun to play with. Well, that's what I did with day 8 because I was frustrated with that fork. But yeah, that's my way of going through the day 8 adventure. Well, I just want to thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.